What's going on, YouTube? It's Zach from the Rolling Times, ZB Auto Repair, and we got a 2013 F-150 Ecoboost here. This is a 3.5 liter engine. It came to me with a P0087 code. It's hard to start. It does start and run, but it runs pretty rough. And I couldn't find a whole lot of info on this code, so I want to go through how I discovered the problem with this and some things to check if you guys are experiencing this code. So you're going to want some kind of scan tool to look at live data, and what you're going to want to do is look at the fuel rail pressure and the fuel rail desired pressure. Right now, sitting here with the engine not running, we're around 400 kPa, which is really close to the desired. kPa, 390 kPa, 400 kPa is about 60 psi. It doesn't really matter if your scan tool is reading in psi or kPa. You just want to look that these are the same. So right now that 60 psi or 390 kPa of pressure is coming from the in-tank fuel pump. The customer had stated to me that he's replaced the in-tank fuel pump a few times. He's not sure why he has to keep replacing them. And he just recently replaced the valve cover gaskets, so he had to have this high pressure fuel pump removed in order to replace those gaskets. This truck also has about 300,000 miles on it. But what we're checking for here with these two with the engine off is we want to make sure that in-tank fuel pump is working, because if the high pressure fuel pump here is not getting supplied with enough fuel, it will not be able to do its job. That P0087 code is indicating that the fuel rail pressure at the rail is lower than desired. For us, that was the only code that we had. Now, if you guys have a misfire code, you might want to check your fuel injectors first. Usually if you have a leaky fuel injector, that could also cause low rail pressure, and some signs of that would be the misfire code, and you'd probably have a lot of smoke coming out of the exhaust. There is some procedures you can do to see if you have a leaky injector. On that suspect cylinder, you'll want to remove the spark plug, and you can do a clear flood crank. If you crank it over with a clear flood crank and it's not sending any signal to the fuel injectors to fire and spark plugs to fire, and you have fuel coming out of that cylinder where the spark plug is, then that injector is leaking. When I started the truck, when it first came in, the fuel pressure at the rail did not increase any when the engine was running. It was requesting 1 to 2,000 kPa, and it was only getting 400 or so, and it was dropping as the truck was running longer. So right there was pretty much a telltale sign that the fuel pump wasn't functioning, but I wanted to make sure the fuel pump actually was receiving signal to work. So with the engine running, I just unplugged the fuel pump, the high pressure pump on the engine, and it stopped clicking. When I plugged it in, it immediately started clicking. So it was obvious that it was everything was good with the wiring and the PCM. It was getting signal to increase the fuel pressure, but it was not increasing the fuel pressure. The pump's kind of expensive. From Ford, it's about $800. So I still wanted to confirm that that pump was bad. When I removed the pump, I found, you can see the piston is compressed. If you compare this to a new pump, the piston hangs out a lot farther. There's usually about 4 coil springs at least on this return spring, and this one's only has about 2.5 showing. So that is a telltale sign right there that this pump is bad, and that's a way you can confirm it before you buy that $800 part. I'll show a picture of this compared to a new one so you can see the difference in the pump. But this pump is not very hard to remove, and it's a lot easier to remove this pump and check that. And if it is bad, then you can spend the money on a Ford part. I would recommend getting the OEM part from Ford. Like I said, this truck has like 300,000 miles on, so the OE pumps do last. Now, when you replace it, there's also a follower. It's like a little roller bearing tappet that sits under the pump. It rides in between the pump and the cam lobe that activates the pump. I usually replace that, and I also pull it out and check and make sure there's no damage to the cam. In severe cases, or if the engine was starved of oil, you could have damage to the cam lobe, and you want to check that before you replace the pump, because if the cam lobe's damaged, it's going to have to be, the camshaft's going to have to be replaced. There's no sense sticking a new pump in there. So relating back to the customer doing the valve covers, now this pump had a lot of miles on it, was probably failing anyway, but when you're installing this pump, make sure that you have the cam lobe at the bottom position. what I did was I made sure the cam follower was in that hole where the fuel pump sits, and I just put something in there and cranked over the engine by hand to make sure that follower was all the way down, the cam lobe was all the way down before you install this. And you're going to want to tighten the two bolts evenly, tighten the one a little, then go to the other, back and forth till it's nice and snug. Because I think possibly what happened was if he replaced this and that lobe was sticking up, or if he just tightened the one bolt more than the other one and kind of cocked the pump, that could be part of the reason why this piston is not returning all the way. It could have got cocked while he was inserting it. So just be mindful of that when you're replacing the pump. For the moment of truth, we got the new pump on there. We're going to fire it up and see how she runs. Little extended crank there because we had the fuel drained out of the system, but immediately you can see it's requesting 6.2 MPa, and it's keeping up right with the desired amount. So, and the idle's nice and smooth. Before, when it came in, it was all over the place. So I just want to make this video. Hopefully it helps some people out there with this P0087 code on their 3.5 Ecoboost. You could probably relate this information to any of the other Ford engines with the 3.5 Ecoboost if you're having these issues. Thanks for tuning in. If we helped you out, leave a like, subscribe, let me know what's going on in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.